this is the same that's in the packet.
And up there. Meeting called to order. Today is Monday, March 4th, 2024. This is the special budget meeting for the Borough of Oakland. An adequate notice has provided. Ms. Celine, would you please read the statement of compliance?
This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law, duly announced, advertised, and posted in the municipal building. The meeting will adjourn no later than 10 p.m. unless a majority of the council members that are present vote to extend the time.
All rise for the flag salute, please. Mr. Pignatelli.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mayor Kamala,
Present.
Councilwoman Gofredo,
Present.
Councilman McCann, Councilman Pignatelli,
Here?
Council President Saliani,
Here.
Councilman Slasinski,
Here.
Councilman Talamini,
Here.
CFO David Young,
Here.
Borough Administrator Richard Kunz.
Here.
The motion excuse, Mr. McCann.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, do we have a motion open to public?
So moved. Second.
Not seeing any public. Motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
Very good, Mr. Coons. And Mr. Young, would you guide us through the budget presentation? Mr. Coons, we'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. So this is the first of two publicly scheduled budget hearings, with the second one being this Wednesday night, wherein we'll hear from the fire department and DPW and the police department. Tonight, we're going to provide you with an overview of the budget, basically take you through the summary of it, talk about the financial condition of the borough, and then we'll hear from Peter Howell, the director of the library, and Mike Guadagnino and Neil Malmud from Recreation, and they'll talk about their budget plans for the year. Okay. Getting right into it, if you want to go to the first slide. So the budget process, just a word about the process itself, and then I think we'll come back to process of where we go from here at the end of the meeting too. So our budget process begins in September, and budget packages go out to all of the agencies, volunteer boards and commissions and departments. They work very diligently on developing their proposals. Then later in the fall, David and I meet with them, go through their budget proposals and see what adjustments may need to be made based on what we're seeing in terms of programs that we want to accomplish, inflationary adjustments, other ways, efficiency measures that we can implement and the like. When we get to the new year, we turn our attention to also then looking a little bit deeper at the financial condition of the borough and meeting with the finance committee and reviewing our budget plans with them. So the document that you have before you tonight is something that was started at the department agency level, went through David and I, involved the finance committee, and is really a sort of a collaborative effort to put together a budget for the borough that funds our operations and is responsible for the long-term needs of the community. So with that, I want to thank everybody that's been involved to this point. The department heads and agency heads do, I think, a very good job, very responsible job. And so this has gone through several meetings, and I think this is the starting point for deliberations amongst the entire governing body. So with that, I'll just get right into it. Funding for the current fund budget, as opposed to the water and sewer, which we'll be talking about in more depth on Wednesday night. For the current fund budget, including the library, is presented at $25,504,498, and that is compliant with both the appropriation and levy caps. It would require a tax levy, including the library, which we'll talk about later, of $18,049,580, which is 2.66% higher than in 2023. Right? I think we'll just get right into appropriations if you want to.
Mr. Coons, just for the council, we want this to be interactive, so if you have questions, anyone on the council, it's more of a workshop session as well.
This has been updated. It may look exactly the same as it has for the past 5 years, but we have updated every year, and it is amazing when you put the numbers in, it does not change. The municipality, including the library and open space, is right around 24 to 25% of the total levy of the taxes that we collect when you include the school, the regional, and the county. So this just kind of shows what our piece of the total tax pie is.
Any questions about that before we?
Can't have a budget meeting without a pie chart.
Oh, we got more than one.
I think it's a good representation about how we divvy up, the taxpayers' dollar.
Yes.
It shows exactly where it goes. It's not 100% of the taxes are for the municipal budget.
Right.
It includes 7 components of the total taxes.
Right.
Just want to make that, I know you know that, I'm just
Yep.
making the public
That's a
aware of that.
very, very good point. Rich mentioned statutory compliance. We have 2 caps that we have to work with from the state. One is on the tax levy. That's a 2% cap. On the appropriation side, you passed an ordinance allowing us to go to 3.5. We are compliant to both. We will be using some cap bank in both cases as well, but the budget as is a solid one as far as the state's concerned. First up, in terms of the data for everybody to take a look at, is the net increase to the average homeowner. This year, that's coming out to $67.54. That's a 2.1% increase over the municipal portion of their tax bill from last year. You will see levy numbers that are different, total budget numbers that are different, but when you apply the levy, the change to assessed value from the assessment info we got from Scott, all that kind of helps us figure out what the average impact is going to be to the average homeowner. So this is that number, so you know what the nut is, what the bottom line is.
And the average home is,
479.
No, just shy of 580. Yeah, like 579,000 and change.
We'll see that in slides in a few pages. Okay, any questions on compliance?
Right. One final note on compliance. As we move to introduction, you'll see the annual appropriation cap rate ordinance that we do every year in conjunction with that to go up to 3.5% on the appropriation cap. So that's just a component of the adoption process that we have to follow. Okay, so this is a very high-level view of where the appropriations stand right now. And as presented, this would maintain all existing services, provides a slight increase in funding for capital investments, and includes some money as well to start on redevelopment planning activities, which I'll talk about more a little bit later on. Some of the significant budget challenges we had this year were in the areas of property, casualty, and workers' comp insurance, which I think you're all aware of. That was a 15% plus increase due to a variety of factors out there in the marketplace and in the regulatory landscape in New Jersey,
15%, you said?
roughly.
Yeah, about, yeah.
I think one went up 17, health insurance went up 20.
No, health insurance didn't.
Sorry. The other way.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to those numbers specifically.
Solid waste, in particular recycling. So the solid waste contract has a built-in escalator. It's a 3-year agreement. Disposal costs have a built-in escalator, and the single biggest impact there is on the cost to dispose of recyclables. Remember, years and years ago, we used to get money for our recyclables. Now we have to pay to get rid of them at a per-ton rate that's actually higher than the cost of garbage at the moment. So there was a significant budget impact going into this year due to experience from last year and where we expect those prices to be in 2024. Okay.
and the prices, those prices, is that how much of it is it, I'll call it the dump? You know, the dump is setting the fee, or is the garbage company, is the dump charging $5 and the garbage company's charging us $8?
So we have a separate collection contract that does not include the disposal of the garbage at all. Right?
Okay.
So our collection contract is just to pick up the waste curbside, take it to the facility and dump it. The dumping fees themselves, what they call the tipping fees, are under separate contract.
Oh, so.
Okay.
And those rose exponentially.
Yes, not so much on the garbage side. We're in, I think, year 2 of a 5-year agreement. There are some cost escalators built into that contract, but that was nothing too crazy. It was really all about the recyclables this year.
And so that's, I mean, so that's just, we're sort of, because we're stuck with, because there's only so many places where you can dump stuff,
Yes.
right? So we're stuck with what we have, okay.
When we bid out, it was a joint bid with Wyckoff and Franklin Lakes for disposal, with Wyckoff being the lead agency. And we actually had 3 bidders, so that was a competitive bid. We're a little bit more constrained actually on the recycling side in terms of recycling facilities that are within an approximate distance from the borough. Currently, we're tipping with Atlantic Coast Fibers, and they're standing up a new facility, should be completed a little bit later this year.
I spoke with Rich about this. Wayne, and I think Ann Patterson, got permission to take bids from an outside company in New York. They saved $1 million. So I know Richard said they have, in order to do that, they have to get permission from the state. Is that correct, Rich?
Well, whether they're a New Jersey-based company or a New York-based company, there's criteria, there's state requirements that they need to meet. So hopefully next time around, because, well, you know, there's a lot going on in the solid waste field, and we can talk about more on Wednesday night, but this is year 2 of a 3-year contract. So we'll be out to bid next year again for garbage collection. And, you know, any and all information we can get on potentially viable bidders is useful information.
So maybe contact Wayne. I think it's Wayne. They saved $1 million. That's a lot of
It's a lot of money.
money.
Right. Okay, so let me give you just a very high-level overview here of what's happening with appropriations. And then as we go through, you're going to see we'll annotate things. Numbers, you know, we try to give you an apples-to-apples comparison where possible. As you know, we just moved the rec budget to a trust, so sometimes it's a little difficult. You know, you sort of have to account for that when you're looking at year-over-year comparisons. But overall, just raw numbers here. Salaries and wages inside cap are increasing 1.75 or so. Other expenses are up about 1.3, and inside cap total is up about 1.5%. Outside cap, I think due largely to the shared service agreements we've entered into for SLEO3 services with the K-8 district, as well as CFO services with Hillsdale, sort of pushed up that salary and wage number. But those items have offsetting non-tax revenues behind them as well.
So when you say outside the cap, the state says there must be a 2% limit, and the outside cap of those that are exempted from it.
This is, what we're talking about specifically here is the appropriation cap rather than the tax levy cap. But yes, there are certain items that are outside of the appropriation cap.
So they have no
Capital-
control of how much it goes up, like
Okay.
insurance.
Well, for example, I'll give you an
Insurance is
example.
not outside the cap. We got a one-time exemption
Right.
from it.
Oh,
but
really?
It is inside,
Oh, okay.
inside the appropriations cap.
Debt service is a good one, right? They don't want any account to default on their debt, so they made that an exclusion to the appropriation cap.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Shared service agreements, because the state wants to incentivize.
Sure.
Shared service agreements are considered outside the cap. right?
Okay.
So we've done a lot with shared service agreements over the last year. You're seeing that reflected here, but again, there's an offsetting revenue of payments coming in from those other governmental entities. Grants, as we talk about every year, we start out the year and then we bring those additional grant funds into the budget as those grants are awarded. So that number is down, but that's always the case. Public libraries.
So we got less grants.
And why is that always the case?
It's misleading.
It's
What
always
we
the
have
case
is
at this point.
less grants than we had at the end of last year. If I went back and looked at what we had during the budget, we were about the same in terms of the grants we have. But we get most of our grants as you process throughout the year.
They start coming in.
CDBG, a good example. And
So
we-
this could change.
It will
change.
absolutely change. Every time you do a chapter 159.
Correct.
That's a grant we're putting in the budget. All of those show up in last year's amended. That's why at the top it says amended. 2023 amended, all the way up.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so that's what the amendment is usually taking into account, anything that we do through a chapter 159.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay. Public library, their tax levy is set by state formula, of a third of a mil calculation. That actually went down a little bit this year. So you see that reflected there, about almost $11,000 less in appropriations and revenue for the library. And then, of course, you have the reserve for uncollected taxes, which we refer to as a non-spending appropriation. The municipality is the collection agent for all those other entities on that pie chart. The schools, the county, they get made whole. They get 100% of their levy. We get whatever's left. So, if your collections are anything less than 100%, you basically have to budget for that to make sure that you have enough money there to fully fund your operation.
I think that's what people might not understand, is that when someone is exempted from the taxes, we don't get the money, but we still have to give the share to the county.
If it's an exemption, let's say a fully disabled vet.
Yeah.
Okay, it is treated the same as, let's say, a nonprofit entity, right? It just comes off the tax rolls.
So neither the county nor the schools get any money from them either. The
Good.
rest of the tax base picks up
Good.
their
Okay,
portion.
good. Thank you.
And that's up 2.1%, generally tracking, your overall levy change. So just in raw numbers, the total budget is up 1.08%.
So just a question. So are we getting all the grant money for the bridge and everything? Is that going to be reflected?
That's not going to be
Very
reflected
good,
there.
thank you.
Oftentimes, when we have specific capital grants, those are pledged against a specific capital ordinance, and you're not going to see them directly flow through the grant fund like that.
On the annual financial statement, you would see a specific section on capital where we have all the capital grant receivables. This just captures the current fund grant receivables.
Thank you.
So our total budget for expenses only went up 1.08.
Yes.
Very good.
Well, now we'll get into some detail on that.
Hold on.
Right. Well, we, as I said, there's some apples to apples adjustments that need to be made here because of what, changes that have occurred. So we're going to get into those very shortly. All right. This is a new, Ross, this is a new pie chart.
Just for you.
Thank you.
I heard you like pie charts.
And, I've seen entities, government entities, schools and whatnot, slice this pie any number of ways. What this is sort of meant to reflect is when you look at our spending, what is devoted to personnel. So all the blue shaded stuff are personnel related costs, direct salaries and wages, which are your salary and wage budgets, and then your pension and your health benefits budgets, which are considered OE, but they're really personnel related costs. Those account for 57.1% of the budget.
I have a question. I'm sorry to keep asking, but is there a percentage of your budget that's recommended for salary and wages? No. Okay.
A direct percent, no.
Okay.
It really varies by the size of the organization and the type of services that
Okay.
you provide. Somebody who did not have rec or seniors would not have those two
Right.
entities in. And we're as small as we are, one or two departments would make a large
Okay.
difference.
Another example, conversely, if you're a town that does garbage collection in-house, you're going to have a relatively larger percentage
Sure.
of your spending devoted to salaries and wages.
Sure,
and
sure.
Relatively smaller portion to OE because you're not going to have that contract.
That's what we have to keep in mind when we keep saying we should collect our own garbage. We know we should get out of contracting for garbage and we should have our own department collecting garbage. I think there was some estimate, was it $1 million a truck?
I don't know that it's $1 million.
I mean, it was
Certainly
It's
six
not
figures.
inexpensive.
Yeah, it was a quite large figure. I don't remember the exact number, but yeah.
We're actually just starting to embark on a study with an outside consultant. This was the LEAP grant that the Flow Towns secured last year. Just waiting to hear that Franklin Lakes awarded that contract to the consultant. And that's going to be about a 6-month endeavor to study our solid waste collection programs, look at how we can work together. Does it make sense to do,
Sure.
keep it outside? Does it make sense to have a lead agency take it over and bring it all in-house? We'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of all of that in the coming months.
Well, one of the advantages, we would be outside the cap,
If it was,
right?
if it was
If
a
a contractor
short
was
Share service,
Franklin
yes,
Lakes,
yes.
share service, yeah.
Yes.
If you want to stop by sometime, I can talk to you about where Wharton is with their garbage, because it kind of talks a little bit about that, and give you a
Okay.
little bit deeper perspective in terms of doing it in-house versus out-house.
Okay, good.
Okay. So capital and debt is about 14.4%. If you then take your solid waste, which is, roughly now about 10% of our overall budget, that's gone up, as you all know, dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. That's 82% or so. So everything else, most of the money that is on the table that you're going to hear from the departments about in terms of their spending is in that 18%.
And the solid waste went up, what, $1 million from 2020 to where we are today approximately?
Maybe, yeah, about that.
About $1 million.
About that, yeah.
Okay.
That's 10% of our budget,
Yeah.
It's big.
2.5 million.
That's big.
Okay, next slide.
It's the eye chart. We have a couple of them for you. Pat, if you could please read line 7.
Okay, so this and the 2 slides behind it take a deeper dive into what's going on with the appropriations. And we tried to pull out some of the impactful budget items and important things that we're trying to fund in this budget. And I'm just going to start to go right down. Again, if you have a question about something, just jump in. All right, so this is the salary and wage budgets. Current fund salary and wage budgets, including the library, are projected to increase overall by 3.25% or so. All right. General government. Now, what we classify as general government are all of your core administrative services, my office, general services, communications commission, green key, mayor and council, clerk. Those budgets are up by overall about 3.7%. You're going to see the large increase, seemingly large increase, I would say seemingly, large increase there in my salary and wage in my budget. That's actually because of a reallocation for the assistant position among my budget and the clerk's budget. You see the clerk's budget is down somewhat. It also includes funding for a summer archive intern. That is a program that you funded last year through capital to sort of kickstart that endeavor. That project is underway now, starting to focus on code enforcement and the building department and all of their records. It sort of syncs up nicely with the coming advent of digital plan submittals and the like for UCC, which is a state mandate. And this position would just work in the summertime and start relieving the backlog and cleaning out archives and starting to get us caught up. The secondary benefit to that is the clerk's office. Wendy, how many Oprahs are you up to so far for the first 2 months of the year?
200.
About 200. A lot of those are real estate related to real estate transactions and the like. The sooner that all of those are digitized, the more staff time that we save in fulfilling those requests. So there's about $6,000 in the admin, in that area to fund that position. Okay. Finance budget is up by $21,000, but there's a $36,750 offset for the shared service with Hillsdale.
For this what?
For the shared service with Hillsdale.
Hillsdale.
Land use, that's planning board, zoning board, environmental commission, and the code enforcement office, which involves building, fire prevention, zoning, and property maintenance. They're up by 14%. That includes 2 promotions in code enforcement. And the biggest chunk of that is we had a shared service with Bloomingdale that ended last year with the retirement of our electrical inspector that we were using through Bloomingdale. That shared service agreement did not renew. So if you recall, last fall we hired a new part-time electrical subcode. So basically there's a swap from OE to salaries and wages. It's just sort of reclassifying where those expenditures are taken from.
So it says code enforcement went up 15.7%? Why?
No,
Yep.
yeah, overall. Yep.
But a lot of that's just a switch from doing a shared service last year, which was on the OE line. So if you look at the next page, you'll see OE is down for code enforcement.
Okay.
So it's moving money from this bucket into this bucket.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Public safety, that's police, including the SLEO3 program that we have with the K-8 district.
And that's costing us 100,000?
No, that's the amount of money that we have to put into the budget to fund the program for the salaries for the people on a full year basis.
But I thought the school was paying the
They
salary.
do. On the other side, there's a revenue line
Oh, okay.
item that's
All
the
right.
exact same dollar amount.
Okay,
Just move it, just
okay,
zero net cost.
That's what I
Good
just say when there's an offsetting revenue, that's what I mean. It sort of
Okay.
zeroes out in terms of tax impact.
okay.
This is including the new SLEO for the high school?
This does not yet.
That'll
Not
be
yet.
chapter 159.
Okay.
Okay. Although we would talk about if that gets adopted before budget adoption, how we would handle that.
We could.
So it doesn't have it in here, although we do expect that to occur this spring. All right, OEM, flood control, and fire, basically all of our emergency services. And that is up, salaries and wages there are up 4.9% overall. Again, a chunk of that is due to the SLEO program. The rest of the police department salaries and wages are up 2.6%. This year's budget planning for police salaries was, a little challenging. We have 3 officers set to retire during the course of the year, another 2 that'll go through the whole year and will retire as of January 1st of next year. So there was a lot of work done to try to properly estimate out exactly what the budget impacts were of when they were retiring, when new officers were coming on board. But that number that you see there fully accounts for all of that, of the retirements, of hiring additional officers to replace them, including anticipating a couple through IGT, a couple through the academy.
I thought the academy is closed. Did they reopen it?
Well, we don't have anybody in the current academy. I have not heard that they're not going to be running a class in July. That may get pushed a little bit to the fall.
Okay.
But we're working towards having officers in whatever class occurs later in 2024.
So we have to depend on people.
Intergovernmental transfers, yes, we're looking at those too. We have a recruitment ad out right now through civil service, and the police are looking at a couple of candidates. And they'll get into that more
Good.
when they're here on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. DPW, lots of divisions here that have their own separate salaries and wage budgets: streets and roads, snow removal, vehicle maintenance, buildings and grounds, stormwater management, and solid waste and recycling. Overall, those budgets are up 7.9%. That includes their contractual increases and for promotions for staff members as well.
So when it's in parentheses, that's an increase?
That's a decrease.
Decrease.
Decrease, I mean.
Yeah, the other thing is, between last year's budget and this year, we did a reallocation of a lot of the salaries. So while, oh my gosh, what happened to solid waste, last year could have been under allocated. This year, we catching up in terms of the budget. So again, in DPW, probably best to look at it as the net sum total, because there was a lot of moving pieces between their departmental, interdepartmental budgets.
And just so you're aware, when we talk, all of these budgets reflect contractual increases as well. This is the last year of 5-year labor agreements for all staff, so that's white collar, blue collar, and PBA as well. So for white and blue collar, the increase this year is 2.5% or $1,900, whichever is more. And for police, it's 2% for top step patrolmen and above. Officers on the guide get their guide increases and any contractual longevity increases as well. All right, so that's all fully loaded into these numbers. Okay. Social services, that's health, rec, senior services, access for all. And those budgets are down, and that is because the recreation program, of course, is moving
trust.
to the trust. The number that you still see there is full-time funding for the rec aid. Everything else, so all of your camp primarily your camp counselors,
Yep.
and your camp staff, all of that's moved to trust for 2024.
I have a question.
Yes.
Access for all?
It's 0.
I thought it was another number.
You have, there's $2,000 allocated in the OE budget.
This is just salary.
This is just salaries and wages.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have accumulated absences, which we fund for any payouts when people retire, any accumulated sick leave that you do per contract, or vacation time, comp time, and the like.
That's something we instituted several years ago, because we never had that, and we'd have to include it in the current budget every time.
We started doing that in 2009 or 2010.
Yeah.
It's been a while. There
We're at
were,
the peak.
there were a couple of very large payouts, and what we were able to do is, when those payouts were done, we were able to basically leave that funding in place, shift it over to a reserve. And it's fluctuated a little bit over the year, and yeah, as David indicates, we're pretty much at the peak now. So we have this large wave of police retirements coming up, which just from look at it, it's just cash flow. From a cash flow perspective, we needed to fund it to a certain amount to accommodate that. We expect that number will come down a bit, in subsequent years going forward.
Well, it's like a savings account for all these different items. I mean, there's more than one trust fund, obviously. And it's just like having a savings account, like a household has a savings account, and we go to that.
Right. Okay. So that's what's going on with the salary and wage budgets. Then we'll turn our attention to the departmental OE budgets, which account for about $5 million in spending, or about 20% of the overall budget. Year over year, they're down by 1.3%, but I'll put a little asterisk on that and hit that when we get to the bottom of the slide. So the general government, again, that's administration, communications, mayor and council clerk, and the like. That is up about $15,000. That is specifically to fund a grant writer. We have an opportunity here, changes in my office, and taking a look at it. I have some literature from several firms, and if you decide to fund that, we'll be going ahead with contracting with a firm to help us out going forward. In addition to the firms that we already use, I just want to remind everybody that when it comes to DOT transportation grants, we routinely use Boswell Engineering for that sort of assistance. When we have historic preservation grants, we're using Connolly and Hickey for that. So those are sort of specialized. This would be, I think, a more generalized firm that can help us. So
This is a set fee, not a percentage of grant, correct?
that's one of the things we're
We
looking
have
at.
to decide,
All right.
yeah.
There are ones that do it based on a set fee. There is another one that has a grant advisory service that is a monthly charge, and for which then we can contract hourly for any specific grants that we want them to write for us. That gives us a little bit more flexibility than some of the other compensation approaches out there. But that's something, if you want to fund this, that we would look at closer.
Because didn't we, was it 2 years ago or a year ago, fire department got close to $250,000 with the Scott Pack through the outside firm?
Yes, that was a company called Firehouse Grants
Okay.
that we had contracted with specifically to write that particular grant. We also used them for a New Jersey fire department assistance grant for, I think it was the washing, like turnout gear.
Yep.
Stuff. Right.
Okay, thank you.
And what firm did we use for the buyout on Truman?
The Land Conservancy. of New
Land
Jersey,
Conservancy.
Which we still contract with to help us with open space issues.
Good.
So, okay, finance-related items are up 10.6%, but again, there's an offset there. That's due to the shared service with Hillsdale and fully implementing that for the full year. Land use budgets are actually down by $25,000. This is what I was talking about before, Pat, where we don't have that shared service anymore, so we had hired somebody. You're seeing an offsetting decrease in OE expenditures as a result of that here. Okay, public safety is up a rather nominal amount overall of 0.6%. The SLEO 3 program in terms of the operating cost, that is really the main cost to outfit the officers with body armor and radios and things and all of their gear. That pretty much ran its course last year, so now it's more maintenance items going forward, so we were able to reduce that budget, so you're seeing a reduction there from 45,000 to 10,800. The police OE otherwise is up by 13%, 23,500. Keith and Vinnie guys will get into that. It's a lot of IT-related costs. Those costs just continue to sort of increase beyond probably what's reasonable, but there's an awful lot of programs that we rely upon to run a modern police department, and a lot of focus and attention on cybersecurity as well. So,
Now, like the accreditation program, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's a book for every procedure that the police department's involved in, and everyone on the police force has to be familiar with that so that everything is enforced in a uniform manner.
yes.
Helps protect us from any liability.
Right, right. And the accreditation process I mentioned here is a sort of a companion program that the JIF has started up for fire departments. So a lot of this is a one-time cost. There will probably be some ongoing costs, but that $13,500 increase for the fire department is for them to go through an accreditation process. You can kind of think of it in the same manner that the police department goes through accreditation as well.
Is the JIF providing any monetary incentives for us to do that or compensation?
I'll have an answer for you on that.
Thank you.
I don't recall offhand. I know when it comes to the PD, there is sort of a credit given on our final bill of the year where they note that we're an accredited agency. I don't know if fire department's going to work the same way or not. I'll just do some research on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Public Works, excluding solid waste, is up 9.9%. What you see there are several things happening. Engineering and planning, I mentioned redevelopment activities earlier. That $20,000 increase in the engineering and planning OE is money for a redevelopment study. A lot of that is sort of undefined in terms of where exactly we are going to focus our efforts, but we know that that's a priority. We thought it would be best to fund something there at this point as we refine that with the planner later this spring.
So it's like for our downtown program.
Right, so they should pretty much be wrapping up their redevelopment assessment. And then I think probably the next step is going to be to start looking at specific areas to focus on.
So, well, I heard two different things. You said redevelopment assessment, redevelopment study. So what you have planned for is the outcome of the assessment to do more detailed work, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I want to make sure that's,
Right, right. You may recall when the planner, if it was 23 or 22, came in and we talked about rehabilitation versus redevelopment.
Correct.
There are statutory criteria that need to be met in order to declare something in need of rehabilitation,
Yes.
in need of redevelopment. That's sort of the study I'm talking about. Do we want to take a look at this block or this block and see if it meets those statutory criteria and move forward in some fashion? So there's some funding in the budget specifically and with the anticipation that that's what we're going to want to do.
That's what's called planning.
Yes. We're planning to plan.
Planning to plan,
I
that's
had
right.
coffee today, didn't
Okay. Shade Tree Commission, there's an increase there. Is there also an increase, I know we increased Forester.
Yeah, so
But also
Shade Tree
for
got increased in
planting, right?
forester and for planting
And for
based
tree
upon the
planting.
revenues they got last year.
Correct.
So that flows through the next cycle for them.
And I think having a forester has been working out very well in terms of, procedurally, in terms of the responsiveness that we can provide to residents. And it's, just having that resource there, somebody with that knowledge.
you? And the fees are covering the costs, correct?
That's actually a good question. It's something I wanted us to take a look at. I know the fees were initially designed to cover what we expected the cost to be. we should actually go and run that analysis and make sure that they're doing that.
Could that person help us with any type of lanternfly abatement?
So, yes, the forester is more dealing with the trees, the maintenance of it, and the zoning board, and the ordinances. So the land probably something separate. He would not, that wouldn't fall to his purview, or he would at the time. We actually ran out of hours
Okay.
last year in the
All
shade
right.
tree.
Okay, when we get down to DPW, you're gonna see that big number there of $193,000. Solid waste is going from $2,163,000 to $2,356,000, 178. Okay, so all of our solid waste contracts are up about 170 of that is for our contracts. 95,000 of that alone is for the disposal of recyclables. We had anticipated $20,000 in last year's budget. Actual was about 115,000.
So we're not getting any revenue.
Well,
From recycling.
you will actually see a revenue line
Costing
item
us
for
money.
it. So for example, when we do a capital project, we tell the contractor to give us the storm sewer grates if they have to be replaced, so we can recycle that material.
That's the only thing we're
Okay.
getting is heavy metals. that we turn in.
You know, I think our recycling revenue, we have it here, is probably on the order of $10,000 a year. And it's not from curbside collection.
Wow.
The market has completely, in the last 10 years, has completely swung like a pendulum from
So
one side to
it
the
costs
other.
us money to recycle.
Yes.
Yes. For the
And we're
part-
already dual stream, we've done all those.
Dual, single stream was the big thing, if you recall, about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And we were a rather early adopter on that. And it actually helped recycling rates, drove up recycling rates up by about 10%. And then China decided, well, we don't want your contaminated recyclables anymore, and sort of shut their doors, and the market struggled ever since.
Okay.
To the point now, for the first time in my career, it costs more to dispose of a ton of recyclables than it does a ton of garbage.
So it's probably,
I'm not telling people to go out and throw their recyclables in the garbage. And we, mandatorily, we're required to have a program. But it just kind of goes to show how far the market is out of whack. And it's still trying to adjust to.
so the recyclables are going in a
reality.
landfill. They're going in a landfill.
In a lot of cases, if they determine that the load's contaminated for whatever reason, they throw it away. So,
And we're paying a premium.
yeah. Okay, social services, not much of an increase there. The big decrease there, of course, you see is with recreation, down 336,700. That represents moving rec to trust, as we just authorized at the last meeting. There is $55,000 that is left there that is, you can sort of consider seed money to get them started. But David, do you want to spend a minute and talk about that a little?
Yeah, so they also have their banner program, kind of similar to the shade tree, where they used to run their tree permits through the trust and get that money immediately. State said no, not a dedicated rider for that. So the revenues that they bring in, we give them the following year into their budget. So Rec ran their very successful banner program last year, 20,000-ish, $20,000 that came in, so we need to make sure that we get that money into the budget. Since they don't have an operating budget within inside current fund, I'll do it just to transfer off to the trust with that. There's also some monies from leftover 2023 budgets that they're still spending for the winter program that cross over from one year to another. So we're getting money over there for that.
But you can only do that for a certain period of time, right?
Correct.
4 months, 6 months? I forget
We
what-
can only make budget transfers between budgets, but their entire budget we can sweep into the trust because that's the purpose of the trust.
Right.
We do that with snow removal every year. We take the snow removal monies that we haven't spent the prior year, and then we move them into storm reserve.
How are we doing with snow removal this year?
Not bad.
Really? No, I'm-
It's been
One storm.
Right. It's been a relatively light season again.
Okay. And then that can't be put back in for 2 years?
Well, as
Whatever's
David
left.
indicated, what we'll do at the end of the reserve budget year is you sweep that money
Into the trust.
into the trust fund.
All of it, and you can spend for
Oh, good.
Whatever we want.
whenever we need it.
Cool. Good.
Okay. And just a note on that too, it's not just a snow removal reserve anymore, it is a storm reserve. So if we were to have extraordinary expenses related to, let's say, a flood event, and we had a contract with add collections to dispose of garbage, bring in equipment to facilitate repairs, that can all be paid for out of that trust and not
Beautiful.
impact the budget.
Good.
And again, if we got FEMA reimbursement or JIF reimbursement, you float that money back into the trust, but that way you've got a place to spend out rather than current fund.
Right. All right, court, I think we'd already talked about this maybe earlier in the year when we were doing the contract. There's a small increase there for the prosecutor. The court's been adding some sessions. We've been very active in terms of traffic enforcement and summonses.
Yeah.
And that translates into more workload for the court as well, and the need for prosecutor services. On the municipal court's OE side, it manifests itself in things like interpreters, and the cost of interpreters goes up. That's not something that the defendant pays for, that's something that the municipality pays for. So there are cost effects to that increased activity. All right. So again, the sum of the department OE budgets is a reduction of 1.3%. Just for the solid waste impacts and recreation, everything else is up 3%.
Is that flat?
Is up 3%?
3.
About right in line with inflation.
Oh, yeah, right there, yeah. 3.7.
CPI was 3.1 for the area, so it's not bad.
Okay, miscellaneous expenditures, which account for roughly 40% of overall spending, about $10 million of $25 million in the current fund. And this is a variety of things, information technology, legal, our annual audit, insurance, utilities, and the like. They're up about 3% year over year. You can see their information technology is up 16%, $23,000. Again, there's additional software that we're using a lot, again, in terms of cybersecurity protections.
Good.
Like anti-malware programs. The Trustify program on our email that we all love so
Yeah,
much.
oh, yeah.
Things like that. Everything to safeguard our information, safeguard our networks. And it's, you never quite know if it's money well spent, but I'm looking at it as money well spent right now.
There was a hospital that had to go out of operation for a couple of days because of
Yes.
malware. Yeah.
Yes, you still hear about ransomware attacks.
That's
and
right.
the like, so. Legal budget, this is the other area where we put some money for redevelopment activities, $10,000 for any, legal assistance that we would need as we try to stand up a redevelopment program, any advice that we need. So we've just, as sort of a placeholder at the moment, we put a little bit of money there. All right, insurance, kind of a tale of two budgets here. Insurance, other, that's property, liability, workers' comp. Overall, that's up 14% year over year.
What's driving that?
A variety of factors. On the property side, just the marketplace, due to the number of natural disasters in the United States, is just driven premiums through the roof. Cybersecurity premiums continue to escalate to the extent that the Joint Insurance Fund, which had been buying a fully insured product for all of the member municipalities, actually stood up its own Joint Insurance Fund specifically to deal with cybersecurity issues. The nice thing about that is they've come out with some, I think, some really useful value-added services in terms of training, penetration testing and the like, that are often difficult to procure, very costly to procure on your own. But certainly that's something that's driving the insurance marketplace right now as well. And on workers' comp, and you can probably go to the Mel website and read about this. David Grubb, the executive director, put out a report on this late last year. New Jersey has the highest workers' comp cost in the nation, and a regulatory environment that continues to get worse and worse from the perspective of the employer, in terms of fee shifting, in terms of changing statute of limitations, creating additional liability. It's certain things are presumed to be compensable under workers' comp that used to not be presumed to be compensable. So it's been sort of a perfect storm in a lot of ways. What the insurance professionals tell me is that that insurance market for workers' comp, property and casualty is as bad, if not worse, than it was 40 years ago when the market was so bad that it actually led to the creation of the joint insurance funds in the first place. So it's something that I think in the last couple of years, the JIF worked very hard to limit those increases. They largely spent down huge amounts of their surplus to try to forestall that. I think they really didn't have anywhere else to go this year. So it's a large general increase, certainly the largest we've seen here in, certainly your time here, probably 10 years or more. And I'd say we're probably not done feeling the pain of that. I'd say you're probably going to be looking at a rather large increase next year as well.
Wow. Cybersecurity, is every employee, do they get some type of training yearly?
Yeah, so the JIF Cyber program is going to be started. That's going to be an hour-and-a-half training. And we contract with a provider called KnowBe4. They do like monthly, short, like 5-minute cybersecurity programs on phishing attacks and all those sort of relevant topics that an end user needs to be aware of.
So every employee we have goes through that?
Everybody that,
Including us.
Including us.
right, you guys get it too on your email, right? If you basically, if you have an email account, you have a network login, you get it. Okay. On the flip side, health insurance this year, I know that says 3%. If David were to shift that decimal point over, it's actually about 2.6% overall. The health insurance budget, which is actually below inflation, well below inflationary pressures in the health insurance marketplace right now, which is certainly feeling the effects on the prescription side due to new medications coming out. And these new medications are great. There's a lot of new medications coming out for cancer treatment, weight loss, and the like. They're very expensive. They're having a material impact on prescription rates, on renewals. So this is maybe a third of or a fourth of what market rate trend is right now. I think we've done a great job in putting cost control measures in place, and a little bit of it is sort of happenstance. We have a younger workforce now, just actuarially, that has an impact as well. So oftentimes there's the rate increase and then there's the budget increase. They don't always sync up because you have different changes with employees retiring, new employees coming in, people waiving, people adding a dependent, people dropping. This year around, and this fully loads in all of those changes, anticipated retirements, additional staff, all of that, and it came out right to be about what the actual premium rate increase was, about 2.6% or so.
Wow.
That other town's budget that I work on occasionally, 20% is their health.
20%.
But a lot of it's they're on the state health benefits plan. But a lot of it is a mix that Rich just talked about, additional people.
Oh, that's the
changes in
state
family.
program.
That's our state program.
Yeah.
So we're very thankful we're not in the state program.
Yeah.
Okay, one bright spot compared to last year is all of our utility costs, electricity, streetlights, telephone, natural gas, and the like. That's up only 1% overall. We're pretty much holding the line there. A lot of the utilities, I think, received rate increases last year, especially with natural gas. That really negatively affected us. But it's pretty much flat for this year.
Can we shop that much, the utilities?
You can shop supply, your natural gas supply and your electric supply. We are a member of the NJSEM, Sustainable Energy Joint Meeting. There's over 100 municipalities statewide in that. It's purchasing consortium. The challenge is we're in the Rockland Electric territory. It happens to be the smallest territory in New Jersey. So whereas in the past, other groups, if they have JCP&L or Atlantic Electric or PSE&G, they're finding qualified bidders. And by qualified, I mean the SEM usually sets a strike price, which means like a minimum bid amount, 5% below the BPU tariff. It's been more challenging finding those sort of conforming bids in the Orange and Rockland territory because the electrical load that they're guaranteed is much smaller. So sometimes we're on that, sometimes we're on tariff rate. It depends on how the bidding goes each bidding round. But that's just for supply. When it comes to transmission and delivery, it's BPU tariff. Another bright spot this year compared to last year is our pension obligations, up 1% for PERS and 2% for PFRs, that's for police. Overall, they're only up 1.8% combined. And then we have the capital improvement fund and our debt obligations. Debt is about flat. You're going to see a bit of an increase there in bond principal of $40,000, almost dollar for dollar reduction in bond interest. And over, if you were to take a look overall at what we're doing in the capital and debt area of the budget, is to trend that up by 2%. You know, we all know that we're trying to get to pay as you go. And that the big issue there will be with roads. But, you know, we feel we don't want to put ourselves further behind the 8 ball with doing that. And that a 2% increase there would be, you know, a modest way to try to at least keep pace with where we're at in being able to fund everything else with you know, basically with cash. So with that, capital improvement fund goes up from about $1,233,000 to about $1.3 million. And then the rest of the items there, the revaluation, special emergency, support for utility, reserve for tax appeals, those are unchanged from last year.
Those 3 items will have hopefully some downward trending over the next couple of years as we get through the reval. That was a 5-year, we're in year 2? 3 of the reval.
3.
Support for utility, that ends next year. And theoretically, the ongoing reval will allow us to reduce our reserve for tax appeals, because eventually, as that variance between reality and what we're taxing people shrinks, you have fewer appeals. So there's some budget flexibility there in the future. We'll get some of that back into the budget for other things.
Okay, next slide. 2024 capital plan. I just want to make a couple of brief remarks about this tonight. We certainly do not intend to go through this line by line. You'll be meeting with DPW and PD. And you know, we can certainly have additional discussions on the plan. But this is where it stands in terms of draft form at the moment. Everything fully loaded would stand at $2.7 million. And there would be sufficient funding in the capital improvement fund to cover everything but a road program. As it stands right now, we would need to, you know, finance that. But I think like last year, we're going to ask that you hold off on doing anything in terms of funding what essentially is the 2025 road program, because we're usually funding for the year ahead. Until the fall, there's some things that we're working on that may result with some grant revenue coming in that we would be able to dedicate towards, you know, to funding the road program. And again, doing it without incurring debt. But everything else, there's sufficient resources on hand to not have to finance anything.
So for the people listening at home, we just heard that the 2024 road program's already funded.
Already funded.
Okay, because we've been, because
Yep.
people have been talking about that already. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Big roads we gotta do.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
David, before we moved on, did you want to add anything on the capital?
No. Again, we've gone through this with department heads, looked at, you know, what they requested. Finance committee has gone through this as well. And as we get to the point of actually putting together the capital authorization, that's when you'll get the real details of everything.
Okay, you want to take the next few?
Sure. The other side of appropriations is the revenues. We have 4 main revenue streams: surplus, miscellaneous revenue. We always take the grants out because we talked earlier. They flex so much. Delinquent taxes, very small for us because we do an accelerated tax sale. Excuse me, and then the municipal levy itself, which drives the tax increase. Surplus is going up by about $105,000. This fits within our surplus policy. We'll take a look at that in a second in more detail. Miscellaneous revenue is actually down slightly. It's just, you know, flexes based upon what we're bringing in and out of the budget in terms of the individual line items. Some a little bit less, some a little bit more each year. That's roughly where we've been, last few years and where we think we'll trend for the next. Delinquent tax receipts don't have anything in the budget. Typically, we have 10,000. We can probably put that back in. I'm not sure why that came in as a 0, but we may put that back in for you. And then we have the tax levy, which we talked about a little bit earlier. We'll see a trend for that in a second. Overall, just like appropriations, the revenue budget's up by 1.08%. What came out of that is the rec revenues, right? They're now off in a trust, so we're no longer anticipating them inside of current fund. Questions on revenue?
Just to be clear, that's upper, above, it's 2023 and 2013, right? Above the pie chart to the left.
Yes.
Okay.
2013 is,
Yeah.
yes, that is a comparison.
It's 2013.
2013?
2013, yes.
Okay.
I want to show you where we were 10 years ago to where we are
Okay.
today. And you can see the biggest difference is the amount of surplus that we anticipate in the budget.
Okay.
At this level, we don't believe we can sustain that forever. Budgets will squeeze and that will come back down. We think about where we were in 2017, 18, 19, 20, about 1.5, 1.6 is where we want to have that on an ongoing basis. Here's the tax levy increase over time. The green dash dotted line is the increase in the residential tax bill. You can see the blue line, which is the municipal tax levy, is a little bit different. And you can see in 22 and 23 both, there was a significant shift to non-residential when we went through those revals. So while the budget may have increased more, the impact to the taxpayer for the residential side is somewhat less. The average over the past 12 years or so is 1.9% increase on the residential tax bill. And at the bottom, you can see what's changed in terms of the individual line items feeding it. Good?
And we're allowed to go 2% and over the, and we're at 1.9.
We're allowed to go 2% for items that are inside
Right.
the levy cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're that 2.87 is what the tax levy increase is, but some of that is outside of
Right.
cap, and we do have cap bank that we're using a little bit of.
So the average homeowner's bill will go up 1.9%?
No,
Two.
2.1.
2.1. 1.9 is the average for the past 10 years that they're increased. 2.1 is what they're going up
Oh, yeah,
this
okay.
year.
Residential tax bill, okay.
Surplus, we run this analysis every year. Surplus is a function of what you take out to fund your budget, and then what you bring in during that year to replenish and get to your year-end balance. You have a surplus policy that says we have to be between 15 and 20% of the inside appropriations cap for the prior year. You can see we're compliant last year. At 2.045, we're compliant this year, and next year, we think using about 1.9 will have us compliant to where we think we'll be at the end of the year. And what we do is we run the numbers. We know how much we put into the appropriations reserve. We know what we don't spend on that will roll into the budget for lapsing the surplus next year. That's the biggest piece that rolls into it. The RUT's pretty steady in terms of what we do in terms of the RUT and what we collect from the reserve for uncollected taxes. So we feel pretty good that that's going to be the number. So we're looking at the budget for next year, we already have a pretty good idea of what we'll be able to anticipate.
And you're comfortable with the policy for the surplus, right?
Stolen it and used it in other towns, just as it is, because it is a good policy. It really does set you a nice parameter. If you look back at it over time, you can see sometimes we squeezed closer to 15, other times we were closer to 20. And as you look at your replenishment, and what we're doing in our budget especially, it seems to keep us right in between those 15 and 20.
Okay, thank you.
And, it's not like you could never exceed that one way or the other, right? It's your policy, you can always change it if you felt there was some extraordinary circumstance that warranted that. But the good thing about staying within that is you never get too far afield theoretically, where you're gonna need to take some really drastic action to get it back within that range. That could have some impact on services or some extraordinary financial pain on the public. You know, ever since the levy cap came into effect, it's really sort of been a tale of moderation. And the need for future budget planning and forecasting never been more important. The surplus policy helps support that, of sort of keeping everything on an even keel.
So we're saying we can't exceed between 15 and 20% use of surplus, or?
It's 15 to 20% of your prior year appropriations.
That's what you want your balance to be after the budget. Now, we could take $300,000 more and have no increase to the levy this year. We have that cash. It would put us outside of our surplus policy, and the result would be next year, you would have a big gap in terms of what you can do for, you know, the services that we provide to the residents.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you gotta also watch is not only what are you doing now, what cash do you have, but what happens next
2 years
year
from now.
when you may not be able to utilize that much surplus. And this is just the other side of surplus is how much fund balance do you have? What is the actual amount at the end of the year? Again, we are at a peak in terms of that. There's been several things that have been unique to the last few years that have driven some of that. For example, last year, based on interest rates in 2022, we're only able to anticipate $120,000, $130,000 of interest earnings. Well, the interest rate went up to 4% last year, and we realized almost $900,000. You know, so that $700,000 difference between what we anticipated and what we brought in feeds right into surplus. Well, it's not going to happen next year. We know what the rates are, so you know our anticipation is at a higher level. So we expect the balance to be somewhat lower at the end of 2024 than it was at the end of 2023. And interest is probably the biggest single driver of that. And we've talked about most of these items already, but again, the net at the end of the day is the average impact, you know, to the resident with the average home. And for us, roughly be about $67. We think the non-municipal will be about $250. How do we get there? At the moment, I don't have budgets from them, so all I have is an estimate based upon what they've done the last few years in terms of their increase. That could be significantly less, could be significantly more. We'll find out probably by adoption what that number looks like. But for our part of the pie,
Yeah, for 25%, $67.
$67.
So these two, we provided you with the water utility and sewer utility budgets. I'll just hit on them very briefly, and again, we can talk about those in more detail on Wednesday when we're meeting with DPWs. Water appropriations would be up by 3.8%, and again, there's a lot of line item adjustments there between salaries and OE and capital and but as we talked about, I think when we set the rates for this year, if you look at the operating impact and the capital impact of PFAS, pretty much that entire increase is attributable to the impact of installing the PFAS treatment units, which, you know, certainly from community health perspective and a DEP compliance perspective, it's a very good thing. Now, of course, we have 2 of our wells online, the ones that were subject to the ACO. But this is the flip side of that, right, where we have to pay for it, and that's where you're starting to see it. I think we probably would have been able to come in with this budget flat had it not been for the effect of the PFAS treatment.
And we will see that again next year. This year, we have some interest on the short-term note. As we go to long-term financing on that, we're going to start having principal payments as well. So that's going to be another sizable chunk of operating expense that we have to add to the water utility.
And so if we get money from the class action suit, would that be?
We would use it to pay down the debt
Pay
service.
down.
Yep. That's why probably until we know what's going to happen there, we'll continue with short-term notes. We won't do any long-term financing because we don't want to get tied into
Right.
anything if we do have cash coming in to offset it.
Okay.
And what we are hearing is, while we have no idea what the amount may be at this point, we are hearing that we could be seeing money as soon as next year.
Well, we don't know how much though, right?
Not at this point. There's a.
Whatever it is better than nothing.
There's a formula in the class action settlement documents that takes into account your flow rates and total pumpage on your wells, and the PFAS levels on those wells, and it sort of puts it into an algorithm and says, you know, here's your quote-unquote community impact, ignoring for the fact that whether, you know, your MCL is, you know, 1 part per trillion over or 1,000 parts per trillion, your treatment capital
same.
costs are going to be the same. But still, that's sort of how they were sort of deriving it. So, you know, we will see something. I don't know how much at this point.
Keep our fingers crossed.
So sewer. This budget was kept exactly flat year over year, $534,000. No increase, no increase to rates. As you know, we have the debt coming online starting in 2025 for the decommissioning of the sewage treatment plant. And there'll be work that we still need to do later this year to see how we can mitigate some of that cost impact on next year's budget. But for this year's budget, no increase to the rates, no increase to the budget itself. It accounts there for the flow going to NBCUA. There's a specific line item there of $77,773. That is actually their bill that they have already sent to us because it's calculated on prior year. They look at water utilization and EDUs and some other stuff into their formula. And what that enables us to do this year is actually put some additional funding directly into capital. There's a related I&I project for the Oakwood Knolls sewer service area that we want to undertake. It's important to minimize that NBCUA number to make sure that the system is watertight, that it's not accepting any flow from sump pumps or any groundwater infiltration from tree roots or cracks and the like, because that's just groundwater that's going and getting treated, and we get billed for that. So once we do that, I think the system's pretty much going to be solid. We just did Skyview a couple years ago, right? So that's what's sort of the look ahead here for the sewer budget for this year and next. And now, I want to just recognize the gentleman in the audience. First up, we have Peter Havel, the library director. He is going to come up and he is going to give you an overview of the library budget and how that supports the operations of the library.
Hey everybody, how are you? Spoke to Rich this afternoon, he said 15 minutes tops. This part. Real quick. Okay, so.
Well, I was only off by an hour.
Yeah, it was close, it was close. Okay, so obviously you guys see a big picture here. I can break down a little bit the smaller picture, and then if you have any questions about what it is that we do, I'd be happy to answer it. Speaking generally about our budget, as Mr. Kuhn said, as the equalized valuation rises, so do our revenues, and as it falls, so does our revenues. We're unlike other municipal departments in that regard. Our funding changes year to year. It's been increasing over time since I came here 9 years ago, which is a nice trend. It went down a little bit, nothing significant since it went up so much the year prior. So we're in a really good place in terms of how much we have to run our organization. So when I talk about the library, I break it down into different, basically, buckets so you can understand where the money goes. Three components that I think of are service, physical plant, and staff. Together they make up the entire place. So some of those are pretty self-explanatory. The numbers for staff you have in front of you, that's how much salaries and health insurance and PERS and so on and so forth cost, and what portion of the budget they are. And obviously people in the building is integral to providing service, which is our core focus. Before we get to service, though, just a moment to talk about the building itself. It is a pretty big building. I hope you've all spent some time inside of it. It's a beautiful building. If you haven't been there in a while, I encourage everybody to go back in, especially if you haven't been in there since the renovation. It's a beautiful building. It gets a decent amount of use. It's old. The original library is a 1936 building. It has some challenges. And then the addition and the renovation, there were still a few things that are getting old. We have a slate roof. Slate roofs are expensive to take care of. We have some issues with the septic that's in the basement that's been ongoing. We've been working on that for years. We have HVAC systems that are old and getting older. Sometimes those things break or fail. Recently, it's been much more difficult to get parts from Carrier to replace things that break, or even if you find the part, it's difficult to get your contractors who used to come out quite as quickly or as efficiently as they used to. And also, it's important, I think, to note that everything is more expensive than it was. That means a book costs more than it did. Pieces for our machinery or our HVAC system cost more than it did. Everything we buy costs more than it did. So while it's nice to have an increase in our revenue relative to a bunch of years ago, everything does cost more, so it doesn't go quite as far as we would like it to. So our primary obligation to the community is to provide service. And what do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is all of the things that we give to the community in terms of physical objects, digital objects, and space. We still have physical materials, we still have books, we still have movies, we still have audiobooks, we still have music. All of those things still go out. Okay, every year I see what our circulation is. Our circulation for 2023 was higher than 22, which was higher than 21, which was higher than 20. We're not quite at where we were pre-pandemic until you count digital circulation, which obviously is much higher. Perhaps it's not obvious, but it's obvious to me watching the trend, because the big deciding factor for digital content was COVID, was the pandemic. So a lot of people switched from physical media to digital media, and that trend has persisted. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but the physical items that we have on our shelves, they still go out, people still come in for them. We have a couple of additional physical materials that people can loan. They may or may not be aware of it. We do have a library of things, which is available to Oakland residents. It's exactly what it sounds like. They're things, they're useful items that are expensive and you might want to use once or twice, but you don't want to pay for. We just got a new digital photo scanner that's really great. It'll digitize a ton of photos very quickly. And you probably don't want to have to pay for that unless you've got, boxes and boxes of photos. The library allows you to come down, check it out, use it for free, return it, and there you go. We have a metal detector, we have an outdoor screen, we have a movie projector, we have a couple of video game systems, we have some lawn games, we have a whole bunch of tools, actually, diagnostic mostly, nothing power, nothing that's going to hurt anybody. Diagnostic tools that are just useful. And we have a thermal camera so you can see where you have issues with your insulation, stuff like that you might want to use a few times, but you don't necessarily want to buy. That's a great addition to our collection. We have a museum pass program. I don't know if people realize this. We have discounted tickets to the Museum of Natural History, which can be very, very expensive without those passes, so I encourage people to check it out. But we also have passes so that you can go for free to the Guggenheim, the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, the Intrepid Air and Space Museum, the Museum of the Dog, the Storm King Arts Center, the Morris Museum, and the Museum of the Moving Image. So, those are all really great establishments that you can visit for free by taking out the library museum passes. We do serve, just so you're aware, as a permanent art gallery. I don't know if people know that. To my knowledge, we're the only free public art gallery in Oakland. We're constantly rotating in new artists. They're exhibited up on the stage. We usually have some information about them up on the stage as well, and sometimes they have receptions. We're a wedding venue, so the mayor knows that. We're also just a meeting space. I want to talk a little bit about that. The meeting space is available for all residents and nonprofit organizations in Oakland free of charge. That means if you want to play bridge in the library and you live in town, you can. And if you have a nonprofit like the Scouts are constantly in there, or some of the other groups in town, they meet there, you meet for free, you use the space. It's a great service because it's a large room that you might otherwise have to rent or pay for that you can get for free. They've got smart TVs in there. We have free Wi-Fi all the time, so people can generally use the technology pretty easily. We also have a local history room now, which is finally complete. It still needs to be fleshed out with the collection, but it's a cool room if people are interested in that. They should come and check it out in a few months when we have a grand opening for that. We also have quiet workspaces. So the library is one of the last places that you can go and work, and there is no expectation of you having to spend any money. So I encourage people who want to study or work from home, if they want to change a venue, you can come to the library. We do have quiet workspaces. We also have not quiet workspaces. Although the cell reception in the basement is terrible, unfortunately, it's something we can't really fix. You can work down there cooperatively in groups, you can talk, you can tutor, you can socialize, you can just have a meeting of minds. You don't have to ask, you just come in and use the space. It's there while we're open, and it's for everybody. We have a computer lab for people that still need it. Believe it or not, people do still come in for the PCs. And we also have, just to bring it back to materials, because I did gloss over it. So digital materials have picked up steam in the last bunch of years, as I said. So what does that mean? That's ebooks, that's downloadable audiobooks, that's streaming TV shows, that's streaming movies, and that's music that's available digitally. Some of the products names are Comics Plus, which is a free online comic subscription service. It's not Marvel or DC, but it's a bunch of other comic books that you can get for free on your tablet or smart device and read if you want to. We have Hoopla. Hoopla is a primarily downloadable audio, but also has ebook service that will allow any resident who has a library card 10 checkouts a month every month. You download the device, you download the item to your device, and you can stream it from your Bluetooth. It costs you nothing. Just to compare that to Audible. Audible, I think, is $10 a month, and you get one download, and then after that you have to pay. So this is like way better than an Audible subscription because it's free. You can download all 10 at once. You can keep them all on your device, go wherever you want to, and stream them. That's right there one of the best products that we have, primarily because there's never a wait for what you want. So if it's there, you click it, you get it. The most robust product that we have for digital media is Libby. Libby has tens of thousands of ebooks and audiobooks. There is often a wait because it's shared with the consortium. However, we're Advantage customers, which means we buy copies just for open residence so that you can line hop if you're waiting for something that's very popular. Anybody who's a Libby user knows that even with that up, there's typically a pretty long wait period, sometimes as much as 30 days or something. This year we started buying, actually last year we started buying cost per cert, which means that if somebody in Oakland wants the item and it's available, they get it without a wait, and then we pay for it after the fact. It means that you don't have to wait for that item, you get it instantaneously. Not all titles are available instantaneously, but when they are, we always buy them because our objective is to get the public what they want as quickly as possible, because we understand that a 30-day wait period is really not something anybody's interested in. We have LinkedIn Learning for those that are interested. That's a free subscription where you can go online and get pretty good instruction on a lot of computer programming, Python, stuff like that, even Excel or whatever. They have a lot of instruction, professional instruction through LinkedIn Learning. That's a pretty good product if you're trying to just expand your horizons and educate yourself a little bit on the side. We also have BrainFuse. BrainFuse has some job help, and it has some tutoring online, and it has a little bit of vet help for veterans. So if anybody is interested in that, there's information on our website. We pay for that. It's free for the public as well. We have Mango Languages for free, so if you want to learn how to speak a different language, you should go on our website and sign up for Mango Languages, and you can use that free of charge. And then we have ProQuest, and ProQuest will get you the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and a couple other publications that I don't remember off the top of my head for free, including today's edition. The only downside to that product is it doesn't look like a newspaper, but if you're looking for an article from the day, you can find it with a few keyword searches. There are a couple of other products that are available through Buckles, which I should mention. Obviously, we're still a Buckles member. That means you get to go into any Buckles library and use your card there to borrow the books that are on the shelf. If we don't have it, they'll send it to us. There are cost savings associated with being a Buckles member. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to house or purchase all the books that are contained across all of the Buckles libraries. But there's also training that they give us. They do our network for us, so we're not on the same network as the borough. We're on the Buckles network, and we have our email through them and so on and so forth. And there's always training and new products being rolled out for us to use on our end through Buckles. So that's an important component of what we offer as well. I think I hit everything, although I always forget something. Oh, our programming. I always want to say, if you're not up on what we're doing, sign up for our newsletter. You can do that with one click on our website. We do programs for children, young adults, and adults every month, all the time. During the summer, it really picks up. I think during summer reading, we had something like an average of 3 or 4 programs a day, every day for 2 months. There's a lot to see and to do and to learn and to participate in for the youngest people all the way up into adulthood. We have a spring concert series coming up. I think it's 5 or 6 concerts that are free on Sunday afternoons, that anybody can come to if they register online, and that's just part of what we're doing. So if you're interested, sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll be kept abreast of what's new and what's coming in.
And what's your website?
OaklandNJLibrary.org. I think that's most things. I can go into detail if people have specific questions, talking about the physical plant. Obviously, we have electric costs, we have gas costs, the maintenance costs I talked about. I think what we try to do is to have a building that's accessible, clean, and comfortable. And usually we get that. We have a little bit of a heating issue in the basement that I will acknowledge has been difficult to fix, primarily because we're having trouble with parts and vendors getting back to us, which some of my peers in other libraries are running into similar problems. But I'm confident that we will get it addressed. Otherwise, I think I've gotten everything. I might talk a little bit about evolution of the organization. Every industry is probably still in a transitional phase since the pandemic. I know we had to change how we do things. Some of those changes were for the better, but now we're trying to be forward-looking. Something we're working on right now is we have a makerspace, but it's not a legitimate makerspace in that it doesn't offer the type of technology that we would really like to offer the public. So a more comprehensive 3D printing program. Right now we have a 3D printer that's very difficult to use. We'd like to get some better ones, put them with the computer, pair them in a location where the public can come in and take better advantage of that. Some more high-end computer classes that we'd like to be able to teach in an instructional environment. It's difficult to do right now with our layout. Things like that. Trying to push things forward, so we're looking towards getting another facility, another room within our facility just for that. Maybe this year, maybe next year. That's something that we're working on internally as the library. So I know that was a lot of words really quickly. But if anybody has any specific questions about anything.
Just, you mentioned Buckles. I remember a couple of years Buckles was having, there were issues, like they thought maybe it was going to go away or it was...
Buckles is solid. Buckles is strong. It won't go anywhere.
Okay.
It's a good, it still functions. It is a better organization now than it was before the pandemic, primarily because we built our own delivery system for books. So people who are longtime library users will remember waiting 10 to 14 days for a book to come, and that's because we used the Free State system, which still exists and still takes 10 to 14 days to get your materials. We built our own in response to the breakdown of that system that now will get you sometimes next day the item that you want. It is a way better system. So for those of you at home who remember the old way, it's a lot faster, it's a lot more efficient. And if you're not sure that you want to come back, and I think you'll be really surprised by that among other things. But no, Buckles is in a good place.
Hang on, let me see if I understand this. You're doing it better than the state?
We are. I'll make that bold claim, we are.
I'd like to congratulate you. What a wonderful service you have for the residents of Oakland. And I know it's in part due to your tutelage and
Thank you, I appreciate that.
and your supervision, but thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick question.
Yep.
Are there grants specific to the library that you take?
Yes, that's my next question.
Yes, and I've gone out for a few of them. Unfortunately, the last 2 I wrote for I didn't get, and they were tech ones. And they were pretty competitive, and I keep trying. I'll probably try again this year.
Why didn't we get them? Is there something? Is it?
They didn't tell me. They didn't actually tell me. They just said I didn't meet the criteria, but it was to get, I wanted to build a mobile computer lab that we could bring actually to the rec camp, believe it or not, to maybe use, pull some of the kids out into a classroom during the course of the day and do coding with them or whatever. And, of course, so what we would need would be Chromebooks that are set up to be centrally managed, that sort of thing, so that we could set them up, deploy them, but have them be controlled, and then we can take some groups of kids out of the rec camp if possible so that they can go in the library, or that we can come down there and use the Danny D building or whatever. But it never actually, did not get the funding, so it did not.
Well, maybe if we get our grant writer, we could help him.
Well, that was a question. I'm trying to figure out what it was. Was it location, demographics, income?
Possibly.
Yeah. What was the criteria?
That was
we didn't get?
undoubtedly a contributor, because I write pretty well. But I don't think it was my writing, but yes, so I could go back and look. But yes, I've gone out, I have none to date, but I keep looking for some. There is never anything, I will tell you, that when my biggest problem has been, our biggest problem has been the HVAC system is older, it's getting older. We have an old boiler too. And nobody wants to touch those really big units. You know, we had somebody come through and they were gonna make the place more energy efficient, and they were gonna replace units, but the large air conditioning units, nobody wants to do those on a grant or two.
Didn't we replace something about 5 years ago?
You replaced one, and then shortly thereafter, we replaced one, believe it or not. And now we have one old unit that's remaining. The thing is that it's still, that's where the heater's broken, so it still cools, it doesn't heat. We're trying to get just the coil replaced. It's difficult to find the part. It's difficult to find somebody who really wants to do that work. And also it's expensive, so they need to either be on government contract,
Yes.
or we have to go out to bid, which,
Yeah.
you know.
Delays the process.
And I'd say just as a contractor, the state makes it harder and harder to be a registered contractor. Every year, there's more forms that have to be filled out, and so fewer and fewer contractors are doing it because they just don't want to do the paperwork.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's bad news.
yeah.
Anybody else have anything else, Mr. Sean?
That's it.
No, thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Peter.
thank you all.
Great overview.
And last but certainly not least, we have Neil Malvik and Mike Guadagnino from the Recreation Committee. They're going to come up and talk about their budget programs and plans for this year.
Hello.
Mike, welcome.
Oh, you'll be up by 7:30.
I
wasn't
didn't
you.
say that.
Well, where should we start?
Tell us what the program is, what's going on.
Youth recreation. Well, recreation, we run youth and adult recreational activities for the town. We do bring in a couple of people from other towns who may not have a program such as roller hockey. They'll come and they'll play, in our program. What do we do? For adults, we actually do have quite a few adult programs. We partner with the men's adult softball, a couple nights a week. They play in the summertime. We have volleyball. We have a street hockey program for adults. We have a basketball program for adults.
No, like,
Mountain bike's mixed, but mountain bikes have been kind of like in limbo state for the past couple cycles. So I mean, with the kids, with the youth programs, we have, you see them down the rec field all the time, you see them in the gym all the time, all the different programs. I mean, and we're always adding. And not only are we adding, but the programs are getting bigger and bigger. I don't know if there's more kids, or more people come in and do multiple sports, but it's just absolutely it's expanding. And with that, our wrestling program just completely went through the roof. We had a complete changeover with our wrestling program this past year. We didn't know what was going to happen. We brought in Austin Wall as our wrestling commissioner. If anybody knows Austin Wall, Austin is Mr. Wrestling New Jersey, state champ. He wrestled D1 at UNC. He has his own facility here. He's really, I mean, Indian Hills, he's really, so bringing him in was a huge thing. Plus he's an entrepreneur, so I like bringing those type of people into the commission. And we said, you may have to start off a little, you may have to start all over again. You may have to start low. About 72, 75 people last year. Just the opposite. It just exploded. We had 125 kids this year.
Wow.
And it was incredible.
Wrestling?
Wrestle, yeah.
just wrestling.
It exploded because, Austin's that type of person. Austin created a great program. There's great parents, great coaches involved with it, and just completely grew. And you had to, with that number growing, we had to buy more singlets for the kids. We completely revamped the Indian Hills, which we share with them in wrestling. We revamped their wrestling room. We put in brand new mats. Those mats were there since like the late 1990s or so. Were dried. It was for a mess. Parents didn't like them. Redid the whole. I mean, that program has just completely exploded. And one thing is, the commission itself, there's only Dan, Bob, and I are the only kind of like old timers there. Everybody else is pretty new. What happened during COVID is we ran the programs. We were one of the only towns that ran all our programs except wrestling because you couldn't, and our summer camp program. And I think because of that, and it was so difficult, we lost a lot of those commissioners because it was just brutal. It was just, I wanted to quit. Several times when you were my liaison, I thought I wanted out. I just had it. What was going on?
We dragged you back in.
Just when I thought I was out. And but this new group I have right now of commissioners are just phenomenal. I mean, about five of us you would consider small business owners and entrepreneurs, which is great because someone who's a small business owner, your paycheck for tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So they're used to dealing and scrambling and making budgets and fundraising. We fundraise like incredible. Austin and Steve Catalano kind of compete for who can raise more money.
One of the banners, yeah.
Yeah, the banner money, and we have so many other things that are just going on. And tournaments, it's just, I mean, we send our teams to Cooperstown. When I went to Cooperstown back in 2008, we had to raise like maybe $1,000 a kid, and the coaches and the parents didn't have to pay. Now they're raising like $45,000, $50,000 a year. You see with the mums and the car wash, and all these different things that they do. So the programs themselves are really strong, really healthy. And as you look at the budget, you see we've gone from about $450,000 up to about $750,000. And just also, there's a couple of capital projects we're doing. We're actually going to be putting in a new playground. We've had some really high-level meetings with engineering and Rich and DPW. We're going to redo that playground. That playground's about 10, 12 years old. It's time to be redone. And so we're going to apply for a grant. Hopefully that'll give us at least half that money, and we're going to try to raise the other half. And it's going to be colorful, it's going to be new, it's going to be new apparatus. We're going to put those little umbrellas over the top so that the parents won't have to get on. Another complaint I get. We redid fields 5 and 9 in the fall. We're going to redo, actually have a meeting tomorrow morning to redo the 3 softball fields, as well as get field 8 done. And like I said, the wrestling has been done. The tennis courts, we're going to be, it's a priority to get it done, all right? So we're gonna get that done. Shoe and field lights, we hope to have done soon.
But the field was just redone.
The field was just redone.
Yep.
Against, yeah, what we've worked with Recreation is, we've worked with one of those, you don't have to go to bid for them, what are they, the state contract company. So we were able to go right.
Co-op contract.
Co-op contract. We were able to go right ahead and meet with them, and that's what this folks we're meeting with tomorrow morning. Dan, Steve, and I are in DPW as well. We're meeting with them because other fields done. And again, those things are being done without taxpayer dollars, grants, fundraising, trust money, and the parade is June 1st. I know you said you didn't want to throw out a first pitch, you want to do something else, but whatever you want to do, you'll have your moment. And June 8th is going to be the pavilion opening at Great Oak Park.
Band show. Yeah.
Pavilion, we have to say pavilion. It's because of the whole Facebook, nomenclature.
June 8th?
June 8th, yeah. We do a good job partnering with the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is purchasing most of our baseball and softball uniforms this year for rec, which is really helping us.
The chamber's picking it up?
The Chamber,
Yes.
yep,
Really?
yeah.
Which allowed us to reduce fees in those 2 sports.
Okay.
And and if this works well, we're gonna hit soccer, we're gonna hit basketball, we're gonna anything we can do to save money. As I said in the past, it's very, I know the parents call me, and they have a hard time making that check, they can't afford it. But if we can do things to kind of bring that back with all that fundraising, with doing this type of stuff, it's phenomenal. We partner obviously with the public events, with the baseball parade, the softball parade. The SAO we obviously partner with, they're our fundraising arm, and it basically is our fundraiser, our 501c3 fundraising arm. Jim Focus does a phenomenal job with, as well as Katrina, who's the treasurer, everybody else who does a great job with that. And we also may be working with, partnering possibly with someone to do like an after summer camp program to take care of the kids once the camp ends.
Like an aftercare?
Like an aftercare type of thing. And more than aftercare, but more like a continuation, program. We're still in the works with that. As for summer camp, last year we were back after COVID. This year we are really back. I mean, the programs that Emily has put together for summer camp this year is just tremendous. I mean,
That's your largest increase, right?
yes.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
most of that's salary.
Revenue and cost, because minimum wage went up, it was killing it.
Yeah.
The wages went up, and also because she's had almost 100 kid increase in the summer and open camp from last year. She is hoping to hire another 22 counselors, which generates more than 50% of the increase that we were requesting, again, which ultimately caused us to raise the fees for the summer camp. I
And
mean,
the big thing
it's
raising the
still a
fees-
great deal.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal deal. And the big thing with raising, we used to pay the junior campers about $6 an hour, but the state law changed, and we have to give them, working rate of $15 an hour. Raising the minimum wage, it sounds like a great idea, but Now you're paying for it.
We're paying for it.
Someone has to pay for it. Yeah, it doesn't grow from trees.
Went from $80 a week to
Yeah, so
$3 a week.
right, we have 14-year-old kids who carry water around and making $15 an hour, so they do a great job.
Is there an age limit on that? I'm available.
You need your working papers.
Different type of papers for Pat.
It's a phenomenal program. The parents are highly supportive. The parents, it's a volunteer program, as most people here have coached in our program. I still coach in our program. And it's grassroots, it's parents, and it works up the way to directors, and it works its way up, and commissioners are and I'm the last. I just basically watch from 30,000 feet and just see everybody does a great job. And the phenomenal commissioners, I just cannot say how great all of them are. They just do a phenomenal job. It's actually for the first time in a long time, we all get along, like a group that all gets along, and because everybody's pulling in the same direction. Not the passing pulling in the same direction, but it's just we just have a great group that's all pulling in the same direction right now. We're past this whole COVID nonsense that went on. It caused a lot of irritation. It was horrible. You're right. It was just a very difficult time. Well, we wanted to put the programs on, and we did. And
We're slowly catching up. We've pretty much reached the attendance and the registrations that we had pre. So was it 2019? You know, that's summer. So yes, it did. I mean, in all sports, we roughly had about a 11-12% increase in registrations.
This year?
From last year, about 380 to 400 increase overall.
Wow.
In the program.
Wow.
Which also accounts for some of the increases that we're requesting in the budget, which now will be trust. And just to emphasize to everybody, we're a zero-based budget. We can't spend what we don't collect, especially now under the new system with the trust that's been explained to us and all the commissioners.
Do you want to go over this slide, or do you want to go over this thing real quick?
I mean,
You got it up there?
just before he starts, he's definitely going to be, he's going to want to give you the numbers, not me. Just so it's also understood too, with inflation, we got zapped last year, big time. You know,
Cost of goods.
course, just what we do is crazy. So that's basically, no one's making money here. We're working on, and we're doing our fundraiser, we're trying to do things to kind of keep things down, but there are some costs.
It looks like when you look at our increase from last year that we're going up almost 33%, which sounds outrageous. But again, a lot of that is due to the increase in the number of registrations. So we now have to buy uniforms and equipment for more kids. So that contributes. I mean, the biggest is the summer camp. We're now funding, we're going to have a full-time assistant working for us to do our paperwork for the rec department. That now needs to be funded. So everybody's sign-up fee had to be increased $10 to help us cover that administrative cost. Roughly out of every sign-up, we're going to be taking out before somebody can spend on the program, $20 for administration, $8 for the cap fee, which helps us maintain the fields that we all utilize and help us, rebuild them, and insurance. And that has gone up. We're now, our summer, working with the high school. We've now working with a lot of the coaches at Indian Hills. I'm one of them, providing summer camps. They now have to go out and purchase liability insurance. It's no longer the responsibility of the borough. So that's an added cost that comes on to some of the sign-up fees. And that's the explanation. Well, if some of the people ask, why are we paying more? That's the reason. So,
Anybody else have any questions?
Do you expect it to grow again like last year? Or you think last year was the anomaly, it'll just grow incrementally going forward?
I think it'd be incremental, but unless we add some more programs. I mean, some of the, like we added a couple more camps, that's a couple more summer sports camps. So that causes it to kind of grow a little bit more.
And those are new, so we don't have, it could be one, it could be 100.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
This is not, this is a lot of times, we'll see what's happening, because we don't really know how we're going to sign up.
I mean, like for example, in softball, because that's where I coach, I just contacted Rosa. I had budgeted for 182 kids. We're already at 183 with another 3 weeks to go before our season starts.
And we all know everyone signs up right before, just hold on to their money. So,
Right,
yeah.
I mean,
But as we said, it's a nice problem to have.
Yes,
correct.
100%.
they have access to
And
it.
now with the trust, we can deal with it. We don't have to worry about how we can pay for this. Now you can use all those funds.
I just want to say something real quick. I was talking to a couple of the mayors, and they were asking about a rec program, and they're like, who's your rec director? And I said, we don't have a rec director. This is a volunteer program. And they couldn't believe, that Oakland was still working with all the volunteers pulling together with the success of our program. So I just want to compliment you, all the commissioners.
Yes,
all the
yeah,
workers.
all of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How's it working with the new AD and the schools in general at the high school?
Very well. I mean, I had a good relationship with Lorenzo. We have a better one with John, because he's really trying to make some big change. I think with this new football coach he's bringing in is going to make those changes. I mean, we were constantly always pulling we can take people to the door, but they have to bring them in.
Yeah.
And we just felt like we were bringing them to the door, and except for some programs like softball. But now I think with the new football coach, I think we're thinking that's going to be the start. The start really was John coming in, John Duncan coming in as a new AD, and now we're feeling that with the new football coach, because he's not just some regular guy. He's
Right.
a superstar
Yeah,
from St. Joe's. He's going to, so hopefully he can bring that around, and let's hopefully, now that usually floods in some more. But one thing happens like with Ramapo when they would take kids, that they take the superstar and they take the superstar's friends, and that leaves
Right.
Indian Hills
And
empty.
you
So
lose
now
the
we-
football player that plays basketball.
And wrestles.
And wrestle, you
Yeah.
lose, yeah. you lose.
So hopefully that will help kind of bring in the floodgates back home to Indian Hills. We have a great relationship with Indian Hills. Like I said, we share the wrestling gyms, we use the basketball, all their coaches coach with us. They use our fields. I mean, we have this great relationship with Indian Hills.
Right, and we use their fields as well. Like, for
Right.
example, some of the baseball teams are using the turf field
Right.
because, you really can't get on the dirt fields with the rain and all that. So everything's been working well both ways.
And this year, the basketball kids coached.
Yeah, I think that was great.
That was, my son was a part of that. That was really great.
Yeah, great, yeah. So we were trying, I mean, but he's doing a great job. He's got a lot of energy, came with a lot of energy.
All right, that's good to hear.
Anybody else?
Any questions?
Oh, great job.
Cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
What more do you need from us?
The trust was, well, what do we say on it?
Tennis court?
Tennis courts and the Truman Lights.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other further business?
Just 2 minutes. I promise I'll be brief.
That's what you said before, just 45 minutes later.
Well, David and I were talking about how long we thought our part of the presentation was going to take, and we figured about 45 minutes, and it was an hour and 15, and I think that was because Pat spoke for half an hour.
Somebody's got to take it in the neck.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk a little bit about process while we're all here. So we have another meeting scheduled on Wednesday. It looks like we'll be in a position to introduce at the second meeting in March, which would put us on track for the public hearing and adoption of the budget at the second meeting in April. It's the same schedule we've used for the past however many years, maybe not COVID, maybe not 2020, off a little bit, but pretty much that's the sort of the standard timing of everything. So if after Wednesday you're looking at these budget materials, you feel the need to have any more in-depth meetings, or you have questions about things, please reach out to David and I, or we can schedule another meeting as you deem fit. And because we'll have some time there prior to the week before the second council meeting in March, when we have to prepare everything for introduction.
I think this is helpful having it here tonight, or else we would have had that do it during the council meeting, which meant we would go to 10 o'clock at night.
Well,
So
no,
I
it's
think
not, I mean, I think this is a good practice, because now it's online, people have budget questions, it's not crammed into a meeting. They can go directly to YouTube, it's being filmed, and look at the information online.
And Mr. Kunis, could you just tease us who's going to be here next week to testify?
Wednesday night, we're going to have DPW. We're going to have DPW, Police Department, and the Fire Department.
It starts at 6:30.
Starts at 6:30.
Well, they don't spend that in money, so we're fine.
And then I will come to the meeting, but I'll probably leave early because I have a basketball game with my son.
Yeah.
He made it? Yeah. Oh, good, yeah.
Any further business?
I think you adjourn the meeting.
No further business?
Motion to adjourn.
Next meeting will be Wednesday, 6:30.
Motion?
So moved.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So Dave, when are you,